everyone, and welcome back to the Colour Cave, where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem, and for quite some time I've been itching to do a little bit of colouring. Just because of the situation with my elbow, I've been avoiding coloured pencil as much as possible. I'm managing my pain levels a bit better now, and I seem to be on the mend, so I decided it was time to embark on a little bit of colouring, and I have come to Pop Manga by Camilla D'Errico, and I'm going to try and pick out some colours for a Narwhal today. Some of you may remember this page from a while back. We started it on a live stream and we were looking at colouring skin and hair with our little mermaids here. So I wanted to pick up on that, and one of the reasons I've picked this specifically today is because I was using Prismacolor pencils, which is the softest pencil on the market, and that is just a little bit easier in terms of hand pressure for me, so I figured this was a really good place to go to today. Now you can see my mermaids have turned out fairly, or narwhal mermaids. You can see they're quite colourful, so it leaves me with a bit of dilemma for our narwhal friend here. Because on one hand, they are quite strange creatures in the grand scheme of things, and they are actually a range of colours depending on their age, but they are very dull colours, and I felt that that really wasn't going to fit in with the spirit of the rest of the picture here. I suppose this video is really about composition rather than actually colouring, but I promise you we will do some colouring. I do want to have quite a subdued background, which I'm going to do last, and I was thinking like dark blue grey colours. Now that's what colour narwhals actually are, and obviously it helps with camouflage, that kind of thing, and I wanted to try and stick to that, but I felt that doing a sort of bluish grey effort here would, number one, blend it into the background and really wouldn't tie in with the colourful mermaid type things we've got at the bottom here. So I've decided on purples. So I wanted to pick a set of purples that would have a little bit of pop of colour, but also still keep that sort of narwhal spirit. Now this is a fancy little chap here. He's got fancy things on his tails, and he's also got a saddle as well, and his tusk is considerably impressive. So I've got a starter set of 4 pencils here, and I just want to explain a little bit using my colour wheel here. When we think about purples, we either have to think about purple going into red, or we have purple going into blue. So when we're thinking about picking pencils, that's really the 2 directions we've got, unless you want a contrasting colour, in which case you would go directly across the colour wheel, which takes you to yellow, which we don't really want to be doing for the purposes of this. So I've decided to stick in this purple realm, but I've headed more in the blue direction rather than the red direction, and that's really to keep in the spirit of the fact that narwhals tend to be a bluish colour. I may add to this. If I do, I'll put the extra colours up on the screen as I go. The first colour is Parma Violet, which is this colour here, and you can see that's quite a bright and cheery shade of violet. This is my pure violet pencil here. You can see it's well used. So that's PC1008. As I say, I'll put these all up on the screen in just a minute. I also have Common or Garden Violet, which is PC932, and that's this colour here. So you can see I'm going down incrementally and getting darker, but I'm sticking with the same colour family, so that violet's so a bluey purple colour. And I also have Dioxazine Purple Hue, which is this really dark purple colour here, and that's PC132, and that's to get our sort of shadow edges in. Here is a list of the colours on the screen for you now. I'm really excited about this today just because I haven't had the chance to do much colouring. So the first thing we look at here is our light source. Now from the girls at the bottom, I'm assuming they're girls, they've got seashell bikinis on. The light source is coming upwards from the front, so maybe down at a slight angle, but from the front here. So we're going to keep that in mind when we're doing this. I know we are underwater, so basically normal light source rules, they just kind of go out the window. But we're going to try and do our best to keep this in with what we've done previously, which was quite a while ago, and I'm not going to lie, kind of struggling to remember what I did, but that's okay. So let's get to work. We're going to start with the head here. It's as good a place as any, and I'm going to start with my little Parma Violet pencil. So I'm going to employ one of my pencil extenders here because we are getting on the small side. These are the Derwent pencil extenders. You buy them in packs of 2. There's one silver one and one black one, and they're both different diameters, so it doesn't matter how chunky your pencils are, you'll be able to find one to let you carry on using your pencils in a comfortable fashion. I'll find a link to those and I'll pop it down in the description for you if pencil extenders are something you're looking for. I have tried many brands and I find the cheaper ones are just, you get what you pay for, but the Derwent ones are really reliable and will fit most types of pencils, and as long as you can twist this part here to squeeze it in against the pencil, they're very, very reliable indeed. Okay, so let's start with this Parma Violet, and I deliberately haven't sharpened it. I want to keep this nice and soft, and I'm going to put a layer of this down over his entire head. I've decided it's a boy already, and that's just because actual narwhals have, it's usually the males that have the tusk. Sometimes the females do, but it's usually the boys. I did a bit of research on them as well, because I thought you would want to know some fun facts while we're going along here if you're unfamiliar with them as creatures. And the first thing that really surprised me is they're really big. I thought they were quite small creatures. They are not. And when it comes to weights of animals, naturally I compare them to cows, because we have a lot of cows and their weight is very, very important. And these guys, when they're fully grown, are like the weight of a full adult cow. And I'm talking about a beef cow. So these guys are big. And they grow really long as well. I think one of the figures I read was the average length when they're fully grown as adults is around 5 meters. Yeah, that's like 16 feet. So these are not small creatures of the sea by any means. So I don't know why I thought they were smaller, but that was just my perception, but now I know better. So we're going to take a step to our next colour down, which is the violet. It's a bit longer, I can comfortably hold that, so I don't have to worry too much about another pencil extender. And so I'm thinking about the light source here. Obviously the top of the head is curved, so when we think about a highlight, it's actually going to be in a sort of C shape. And the peak of that's probably going to be around here, because although this curves down the way like this, it's also going to curve back the way. And the light source isn't coming directly from above. So I'm going to take this violet pencil here and I'm going to start at this outside edge. And I'm going to start to create that highlight shape. And I'm using the little dots that Camilla has left here as a sort of guideline. I'll soften this right out as well. So as I'm working towards where my highlight is, I'm letting up the pressure of my pencil so that we get a nice blend between the darker shade and the Parma Violet that we've just put down. And I think I'm going to make it quite wide. I'm going to make this whole section here, so to the other side of his eye, I'm going to make that quite a wide highlight, but it's not going to be a harsh line, you know, there's not going to be a very discernible hard line between one colour and another, because it is a rounded surface, and from what I've gathered these guys are pretty smooth as well, so we want it to be very, very gradual. So the way to do that is to build it up. So I'm just going to keep going with my violet pencil here, and I'm going to put a layer of this down on this left hand side now all the way around. Look at his little mouth, that's adorable. So something else I learned about these creatures as well is that their horn, it's actually a tusk. It comes from a tooth. It's like it comes from a canine, and technically they have the ability to have two, you know, like an elephant's tusks, but usually they come out the left side. So I couldn't find any pictures of ones with two. They only had one, but it was weird because it is mostly the left. I don't know why they favour the left. But yeah, that was really strange as well. Okay, so I'm going back over for a second layer now, and I'm going to bring this back over to this right hand side. So kind of what I've got here, that's what I want down this side. So pressing a little bit heavier there just on that outline part. And then as we work towards this area here, I'm going to fade this out. Now I want to get a bit more of a curve here. So that's starting to take shape quite nicely. I can't get over that lip, that's the cutest thing. Okay, so with the dioxazine now, I'm just going to put in some of our darker areas. And this is an approach I seem to have been taking more recently. Normally I either go from light to dark or dark to light, and that depends purely on the colour choices I've made. But what I seem to be doing more recently is like a double-pronged approach, which is what I do when I'm drawing. And that is to put your lightest lights in and your darkest darks, and then get them to meet in the middle. And that works very well when you work with graphite, which is my favoured medium. So I find it interesting now that that's starting to seep into my colouring. So very darkest areas on this outside here. So what I want to do is start hinting at the fact that that's a bit of a shadow, and we're not going to go all out this day. This is a very, very gradual process. Because it's a large area and it's smooth, we want everything to be as gradual as possible, so it follows suit that our colouring technique should be gradual also. And then we can start to build this up. And I'm going to have like a little bit under his lip there, just because I can. It looks like I've given him a goatee. So if I go back now, if I take a step up to my violet pencil now, I can build this outside edge. So I'm going to leave his lip really pale just so that it stands out, so we've got contrast there, and that's how we make things stand out. So you can see I'm still keeping a very rough C shape here. Not a C shape, a C shape. Oh, the jokes are bad today, guys. They're bad. But again, this just helps to show that this is, because we're going with the curve of the collar here as well. So now we want this other side, the other dark side, to join up. So we're going to go a bit easier on the dioxazine here. And maybe round his horn here, this might be darker naturally. So you can see where that's going now. So if I take my Parma Violet and just go over everything, because this is a slightly lighter colour as well, it's just going to lift everything a bit. Just going to highlight these little marks here as well around his eye. Okay, so we've got most of that done now. Let's move on. So under his belly here, there's going to be a curvature here. So we're using roughly the same technique, but can I just show you here? That's the kind of highlight shape because his belly's going under. So that's what we're going to work towards here. And I'm using exactly the same technique as I did for the head. It's just a slightly different shape because his body is moving in a slightly different way. He's a very fancy collar and everything. He's a fancy narwhal. Well, I suppose he's fancy anyway because it's purple, but you know what I mean. So another narwhal fact for you is that they are, obviously, they're part of the whale family. I think they look very like seals actually, but they are part of the whale family, and they are not migratory. They live in the very cold seas around Canada, etc. And they stay there all the time. And one of the reasons that it makes sense whether I think they're like seals is the fact that, moving to the violet pencil now, is the fact that they don't have a dorsal fin, and obviously seals don't have dorsal fins because they're not whales. But there's a reason for it. It's an adaptation, and it's so that they can swim under ice, and their dorsal fin obviously isn't going to cause them any issues, which I found very interesting too. So there you go. They are, I can't remember the scientific name, but part of the scientific name, like the second part, is monoceros, as in like a mononoceros, as in mono, as in one, as opposed to a rhinoceros. So that was also very interesting as well. I would like to look up a little bit more with that. So I'm going to start in this little crevice here. A monoceros, it's amazing. So I'm just going to continue to work away on this section and also this section, which is going to mirror this part here, and I'm doing that in exactly the same format as well. So I'll just carry on with that just now. I need to get these gaps in here. So when it comes to this part that joins on the fin, I've basically just faded out that Parma Violet pencil because I'm going to deal with the fins as a separate entity. I like to break my images down and work on them piece by piece because it becomes less daunting. And I find that I make a better job of it when I work in little bite-sized parts like this. So you can see there what I've done with the shading here. I'm going to try and continue that. Obviously this will be a lot darker under here because this is going to be a continuation and it's going in a curve shape. So I'm grabbing my darkest purple here and I'm just going to join this up, so to speak, with this here so that I can bring it on down. I say we'll deal with this fin later. There we go. So I've effectively just sort of cut it off from the rest of the body there. And this is going to be darker because this is heading down underneath now. So we can continue this dark line. And again, that's going to be very minimal on this bottom part here just because we've decided that the highlighted part's coming all the way down. So, you know, I'm using a bit of creative license here, but that's half the fun of colouring. Okay, so now I just want to start sort of softening this out because, you know, this is very stark still. So I'm going back to my violet pencil, so the middle purple colour we were using. I'll just get into some of these wee fiddly bits here. So I'm using the side of my pencil here and I'm using this scumbling motion, which is this little circular motion. And it's just so that I can get a nice soft transition in this area. Now I feel like I want more violet in here. Okay, so back to my Parma violet again, and I'm just going to go over everything just to lift it a little bit. So a medium pressure layer. Might just join this up a bit better here. Yeah, come on, Gem. Tidy up some of my lines a little bit here. And again, taking the darkest colour. This part's, because we've got the tack coming down here, that's going to be fairly dark in there. I was just looking to see areas where there might be gaps here where the skin will be showing through. And it's something that I struggle with this colouring book, because Camilla D'Errico's art style is quite loose and she leaves quite a lot of her sketch lines. As a colourist, it can be quite difficult to pick things out, and I have struggled quite a lot with this. And I find that it's easier to work it out as I go along, rather than being able to pick things out from just the black and white image. So I'm just using the violet here, and I'm just joining this up basically. Yeah, this could be solid, or this could be narwhal skin in here, because there is a line that comes down that would suggest that this part goes like that. I think I'm going to make that. This is exactly the stuff I'm talking about. There's a bit in there as well. Look, oh. It can be difficult. See, this looks like a ladder sort of, you know, if you imagine a ladder with the rungs. So I think that this might be narwhal skin in here, and I'm going to go for it. I'm going to make an executive decision, guys. Now, there's not a lot we can do with that in there, just because of the size of the space. So I've just filled that in with the violet pencil, and then I'm going to take this darkest pencil and really just fill that in. Yeah, so you can see this panel looks as if it's coming down like this. And this all looks solid. Okay, so let's move up to the back part of him now. So this is going to be quite dark in here, but there may be a little bit of a highlight. Again, if we think about the line of movement, which is something we talk a lot about in figure drawing, the line of movement actually goes like this. It's almost like a wonky S shape. So it figures that perhaps that highlight, if we follow the line of motion, it comes up like this. There might be a tiny highlight in there if we just want to make it look interesting. So let's go for it. So again, start with my lightest colour, Parma Violet here. Just a quick layer over there, doesn't have to be tidy. And then we can grab our violet. Now this is fairly straightforward in terms of it being a shape, and this is what I'm saying about breaking it down. This section is almost completely straight up and down. It may even curve slightly that way, because that's the direction we're heading in, but it's a very small area. It's up to you whether you want to do something like this or not. So now I'm on to my darkest purple. And then in here at the saddle, that's going to be dark in there, I would think. So entirely up to you if that's something you want to pursue. I just think it makes things look a little bit more interesting. Again, it's not going to be a bright white highlight. Things are pretty tucked in under there. So I'm going to soften down that highlight area with the Parma Violet, the lightest pencil. And then I'm going to go over everything again, just to blend it in. And this is the beauty of the Prismacolors. Blending is so quick, so easy. Yeah, there we go. That looks fairly good. So we've still got a little bit of light there, but it's not this sort of stark area that we've got here, which is clearly protruding because it's curved. Okay, so thinking about our little narwhal further up, we can see again Camilla has left us this lovely big white space to indicate that would probably be the highlight. So that's what we're going to do there. So I've got to start from this section in here because this is all joined up. So it's pretty easy for me just to follow on from this section here and just be able to make this all this darker colour. And we're let up towards the edge here because this is where our lighter part's going to be. Okay, so when we're talking about this section here, again, I'm going to cut it off at the tail. Not cut his tail off. Just get this area covered with a quick swipe of Parma Violet again and stop it there. Okay, so now we are back to our violet pencil and we are taking this cue here. So you can see this dappled area, like this spotted area. That is perfect for telling us where we want that lightest part to start and then this darker part to stop. So we really have been given a huge helping hand with this tail section, which is lovely. It's very nice, very, very nice indeed. So there we go, and then we can do as we've done with the head, take that darkest pencil and we can get this nice line down here. And again, I'm fading that out towards the tip of the tail because this is going to be a highlight point. So we don't want to bring that dark colour too far up. And then we can go back to our violet now and we can start to blend this a little bit. Gone outside the lines a little bit there. Oh. Well said. I do actually feel really rusty when it comes to colouring because I haven't done it for so long. The last thing that I coloured was the body colour that I did with Helena at the Colouring Zone, and I had actually filmed those videos almost a month before they actually went live, so that was just as my elbow problems were starting, so I literally haven't coloured in months. So I do feel a bit rusty, I have to say, but we'll get there, everything will be fine. Okay, so I'm trying to go easy here with the violet, this part. And I want to have a wee bitty here, just where these little dots are again. And I'll bring that down and join this part up now. So we've got a bit of work to do here. This is not quite where I would want it to be. Just add a bit more colour in there. Okay, so I'm going to lean a bit heavier with the violet now. Just bring some more colour in here. Superb. Okay, let's have a wee zoom out a bit. Oh, he's looking spectacular. So just to finish up what we're doing here now, we're going to take a look at his fins. What I did with the mermaid narwhal type creatures is I had a main colour for their bottom half, like their tails. But the fins at the end, I added in a pop of colour, and that's what I want to do with him as well, because I think that would be nice to do. So the question is, what colour do we go for? The obvious pick is a blue colour, but I think I'm going to go pink just for giggles. It's going to be a bit more difficult, but we're going to go for it. So I'm going to use the same technique that I used for the tail, which you didn't see for this one, but I did do this one. So what we want to do is start with the main sort of body colour, which in this case is the Parma Violet, because that was our base colour. So what I'm going to do is pop that down. Now I'm going really lightly here, like super, super light. And I'm going to take that almost down to the very bottom here. So it's super, super light layer. Now in terms of picking a pink colour, I don't think this is going to surprise most of you much. I am going to find the most offensive pink colour there is in the Prismacolor selection. It was only ever really going to be one of two colours. It was going to be mulberry or it was going to be process red, and we call it not process red because it's actually pink. Standing joke in the cave. So that is the colour that I'm going to go for because it is bright. I feel that the mulberry is a little bit too muted for what I'm looking for. We want to put in some of the veins of his fin here, and we're using the colours that we've used for the body, so we're not doing anything different with colours here. So first things first, I want to find these veins. So there's one there. Again, because the artwork is quite loose, this isn't always the easiest thing to figure out, because some of the lines are lighter than others. There we go. Okay, so you can see there that's given us the starting point there. So we want to build up just with the colours that we've been using. So with the violet here, I actually want to just make this kind of darker in behind here. So we build this colour up here and just make these a bit more prominent. And I'm avoiding the bottom half of the fin. Looks a bit more structurally sound. So just build up a little bit, make these lines more deliberate. Now here's the fun part. I'm going to take our process red, which is PC994, and we're going to start at the very tip. And we are going to press down super hard and use that Prismacolor smoosh to our absolute advantage. I probably don't use Prismacolors nearly as much as I should, but I am hardly pressing at all and I can get so much colour out of that. So this is going to look pretty nice. It doesn't look like much just now, but bear with me. So as we head in towards the centre, we're going to lighten up. We're going to let up on our pressure, but we're going to stick in between these veins that we've just put out. So we're going to work around them just now, and we're going to bring this up and fade it out as we go. So just let up that pressure. See, Prismacolors are perfect for this. Around the outside edge there. See, this is fun. This is fun. Okay, so then what we do is we go back to our Parma Violet, which was our lightest colour. And inside these sections here, we're going to start working that colour in. Now what I'm seeing here, and I'm sure you can see it too, is that the veins are starting to blend in with those other sections. So to rectify that, I'm going to take my darkest purple, so that was our dioxazine, and I'm going to put in a few strokes to darken them down, and that will give us a lovely differentiation between our Parma Violet here and those veins. So just a medium pressure, and we're going to blend the Parma Violet and the Process Red in together. Now, I don't necessarily want a perfect blend. There must be some sort of texture. And then I can work on this outside edge here as well. So you can see where we're going with this now. So now, just to finish off these vein parts, I'm going to be a little bit more precise with my pencil strokes now. Now I want to leave this white area just to give us some dimension, but I'm bringing my pencil along the top edge of these veins, so I've sharpened it to a bit more of a point. So bringing that right along to the end there, but leaving that paler colour there just to give it a bit of interest. Now this fin on the other side is going to be an entirely different story. So I'm going to take the Process Red here, and I'm going to bring that up to there. Now the underside here doesn't look as exciting, there's not as much going on, so I'm going to stick to my purples there. So Parma Violet down to here. And I think the edge closest to us is going to be a little bit lighter, maybe it's catching a wee bit of light. We'll blend this in with this body here, so I'm going to leave that a little bit lighter, and I'm going to be quite linear. So I'm giving, you know, quite a lot of definition there, and I'll just use my dioxazine to merge this and blend it together a little bit. And then this under part, what is wrong with me today? This part here underneath I think is going to be much darker, out to probably about here. So we're going to have to manage this quite carefully. So I'm going to start with the violet, not the Parma Violet. So no Parma Violet. Put in some texture on my one just with a flicking motion there. And then I'm going to take this dioxazine and I'm just going to get right on in there, and I'm going to make this as dark and as heavy as I can without pressing too hard. But you can see the contrast I've gotten right there between this part of the body and this part. There is contrast there, but I've left a tiny white edge, and that's just so that we can see the separation between these two parts. Oh, that is a deep dark shadow. And then I'm going to start flicking very lightly, though I'm not pressing hard when I'm doing this because I want to build it up. Okay, so that's given us quite a nice effect there. And with the violet now, if I just turn this very slightly, I want to try and extend some of these lines because we want to be able to blend some of the Process Red into this. So again, a very light touch here. I don't need to be hammering away here, but just bring that up to that tip there. And we can maybe add in a little bit more colour underneath here with this pencil. Now that's going to be very dark in there, so I wanted to pick out a darker shade. Now I have PC1009, I never know how to pronounce it. Some people say Dahlia or Dahlia purple or Dahlia purple, however you want to pronounce it. That's the colour we're going for, and it's this dark pinky purple here. So I'm going to use that for a little bit of shadow in at the corner of this fin here. It's going to be very discreet though, it's not going to be. There's not going to be a lot of it. So back to our Process Red now, and we just want to blend that out a little bit. And we'll bring this round. So for the final part of this, we're going to look at his tail, and I'm going to treat his tail pretty much in the same way as his fins. So we're going to be using that same technique again that we have just used. We're not going to see a lot of pink though, just on account of him having these fancy tail cover things on. Have they got a name? If they do have a name, I would be keen to hear it from any of you that know it. So I'm just going in with the Parma Violet here and popping down a layer of colour. So in terms of the veins in the tail, these aren't so obvious either. I think I might just be making these up, but do you know what, that's okay. See, I can't really tell if that's one there or not. There's so many sketch lines here. I'm going to make that one there. And I'm going to make one here. So I am making this up. So now we need to decide how much pink we're going to see as well. And I think on this foremost tail fin we'll probably see a little bit more. So I am going to bring that up. Yeah, I think that's enough on that one. And I think there might only be a hint of it either side here. I think that's probably about as good as it's going to get. So let's make these a little bit darker. And then we can take our Parma Violet and we can start blending out these sections. Now there might be a little bit of a highlight and I'm thinking it's probably in here, so I'm kind of bearing that in mind and I might do something with that. So I'm going to work on these back sections first. Maybe that's a little bit lighter there. I just need to blend this out a little bit better at the head of the tail there. Yeah, I think that this bottom part might be the highlighted section. I'm going to go with that. Okay, so assuming there's going to be a highlight in these two areas, we'll keep that fairly light there. We'll just add in a little bit more colour here, just to make it a bit more even. I'll bring that to maybe say there. Just working section by section here. And there we go, that is us, we are all done. So if I take a zoom out now, we can see that our narwhal friend is a bit more in keeping with our bright little mermaids down at the bottom. So I hope you've learned a little bit today about contouring colours, but also just a little bit more about the thought processes involved when picking colours as well. If you would like to see me colour the rest of this image, you can let me know. The next part I would do is probably the tack, but also would quite like to do a separate video on a background as well. So if that's something that you would find helpful, then please let me know and I would be happy to film some more of this for your viewing pleasure. So that is it for today, guys. I have thoroughly enjoyed myself. It's been so long since I've done some colouring and I'm really glad I've got the opportunity to do it this morning. This is a lovely way to start a beautiful sunshiny day here at the cave. So thanks very much for watching. Thanks for coming and hanging out. You know, I always appreciate it. And I will see you back in the cave on Sunday for another video. So have a great day, everyone. Bye bye for now.